UFC Matters shows for free a week. But if you want to support the channel, there are a few ways of doing it. Hit the like button on each live broadcast or video. This helps the channel grow. Hit the subscribe button and select the all notifications option. Hit the thanks button to buy a super sticker. You can do this on the live chat too. You can also join our Patreon page or buy us a coffee at the link in all of our video descriptions below. We are also looking for sponsors. If you want our latest advertising rates and how you can get involved, then email John at nufcmatters1892@gmail.com. Thanks for watching. Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters. It is Ask Gibbo. John, how are you?
I'm good, my friend. I'm good. We're still in there cooking, so that's good news.
Good stuff. Good to see you. And happy VE Day as well. 80 years on now, and it is the official day today. So if you're celebrating, enjoy yourselves and don't have too much to drink. But yes. Anyway, let's talk about Newcastle United for the next hour and get your questions in the chat as always for Gibbo. And John, the Brighton game, I think we all said a draw would be a good result, and that's what we got.
Yeah. And, don't tell me it was lucky because it was a penalty 1 minute before the end of normal time. I know we had another 9 minutes after that. But I don't think it was lucky at all. I mean, we weren't at our best. We weren't at our clinical best in the final third, but we didn't deserve to lose under any circumstances. And, we said it would be a good result. The funny thing is, Steve, though, and we found this because we always look around at the other results now because we're so near to the finish line. And all the teams at the top tend to win, and all the teams at the bottom tend to lose. That's quite obvious. And so sometimes getting 1 point instead of 3, you lose a little bit of ground. So, it's tight there now. That draw was fine. We don't want too many in the next 3 games. 2 of those are at home. There's difficult games. Blimey, Chelsea home, Arsenal away. But we have to win our 2 home games, I think, Steve, if we're going to clinch the Champions League.
Yeah, I mean, VAR often criticised on this show and other platforms. It got things right at the weekend. I know it was still time consuming. It still adds a lot of injury time on to the end of the game, John. But 3 penalties checks. And I mean, they got them right, but it still took far too long, John.
Well, it does. And we who have been brought up, as most fans have, with the instant elation of a goal. You no longer have that because you've got to stand round while people up in a loft in somebody's backyard decides whether it was a goal or not. And it takes a long, long time. And it takes the enthusiasm and the instant rapport out of the game. But all 3 decisions were right. I think the fact that it took so long to give us the penalty, the third decision, was the most ludicrous one, that it took it so long because it was obviously a handball. But to then look at other things to make certain there hadn't been a foul on the build-up, it's quite ludicrous. I mean, yes, the other 2 were right. Certainly when Willick went down, there wasn't contact. It wasn't a penalty. So he got booked for diving. And the other one was 100% a foul, but it happened inches outside the penalty area. So all 3 decisions were right. But it must be a quiz question for the future, mustn't it? We were awarded 3 penalties, all in the second half, and only the last one counted. And well done, Isak, who I don't think has been anywhere near his best, but well done for keeping his nerve, because he had to stand through and he knew it was virtually the last kick. He had to score with it, or Newcastle lost, and he kept his nerve and he scored, and that was terrific. Although I think he still is well short of his best form.
Yeah, I mean, Eddie Howe finally confirmed on Friday that he is carrying a groin strain, and that is the reason that we're not seeing the best, from Alexander Isak. It's certainly that part of the season now where niggles and injuries are going to flare up even more. We're coming towards the end of a very busy campaign, a successful campaign at that. But the one thing about Alexander Isak is, even if he doesn't do much in 90 minutes, there's always that chance that he could be there to score that important penalty, which got us a point, or score a goal out of nothing. And the record that he has against the Premier League clubs is there for all to see. That's your current Premier League teams now. He scored against them all now. I mean, that's phenomenal. 6 against Spurs, 6 against Forest, 5 against West Ham, 4 against Brentford, 4 against Wolves, 4 against Ipswich, 3 against Villa, 3 against Liverpool, and 3 against Chelsea, importantly, looking ahead to the weekend later, of course. 2 against Southampton, and then 1 against Palace, Man United, Man City, Fulham, Bournemouth, Everton, Leicester, Arsenal, and Brighton. Brighton, of course, was the missing team, which he put right at the weekend. But that just shows you how important it is having him on the pitch, whether he's fully fit or not.
Yeah. I think the thing that's concerned, I mean, there's absolutely no question about his quality, and there's no need to talk about it because we've done it time upon time upon time, because we all appreciate that he's quite something special. And I've banged on, as you have and other people have, Steve, that under no circumstances do you sell somebody that's scores the goals he scores and scores wonderful goals like he scores. You don't sell him because he's irreplaceable. 25 last season, 26 this season, and 3 more matches to go. I think what's concerned one or two people, Steve, since Wembley, and of course it's a mystery injury, isn't it? If ever a player's on bad form, I'm not suggesting for 1 minute he hasn't played with injury, because he has. But if a player's on bad form, a manager immediately says he's got a groin problem because that's untraceable. He's got a little bit of a groin problem, mate, so get off his back. And nobody should be on Isak's back because he's been wonderful. I think one of the problems been, and it has been a concern for me, Steve, because I've got to be truthful, is his body language hasn't been good. He hasn't looked passionate. He's looked at times as if he's going through the motions, but then centre forwards with his ability, you're right. If you've got them round, you've always got a goal on the pitch, and that applies to all the great centre forwards. If they're not having a good day, there's a goal on the pitch. He can score in certain circumstances. And as I said down there, the wonderful thing was keeping his nerve on that penalty, because I mean, if you remember, the penalty Eze took against us at St James's Park for Crystal Palace was embarrassing. And the penalty last night that Paris Saint-Germain took against Arsenal, it hardly had the strength to reach the keeper. People make a mess of spot kicks, and he doesn't. And good on him, and we're going to need him. But wouldn't it be wonderful if we suddenly saw the old fiery Alexander Isak back against Chelsea? Because really, it's such a tight game, this one, Steve. That could make the difference, The old Isak would make the difference between us and Chelsea without a shadow of a doubt.
Yeah, it's funny you're talking about penalties. It was interesting to see that Eze obviously took a penalty for Crystal Palace in the last game that they played, and he opted for the same style, almost as if to prove to everybody, look, this little dance that I do, I can still score penalties from it. But it was funny. It was funny to say that he'd scored. He had success. At least he didn't have success against us with it.
That was the important thing. But I mean, they're an amazing side, aren't they? I mean, Aston Villa made us draw breath when they beat us 4-1 down there, and think, oof, are these going to come with a late run? Are they a better side than us? Have they got greater strength and depth with us? And then you look at Palace in the semi-final of the Cup, absolutely take Villa apart. destroy the Villa midfield, etc., etc. And we beat Palace 5 up here, and they look nothing. It makes you wonder if Palace have got a lot of big-time Charlies, and I mean that nicely, who perhaps are looking for greater things at bigger clubs like Eze and like Gay, etc. The centre forward as well, Wharton, who plays for England. But on the big stage, i.e. the Cup semi-final, they can produce a big performance. And by Jove, did they? They were unrecognisable in the semi-final of the Cup, Steve, from the side that we turned over 5 up here.
Yeah, they certainly were. The European competitions are reaching their climax and getting to the final. And you touched briefly on that there, but Arsenal obviously dipping out. I mean, I've got to be honest. I've heard a lot of people over the last few hours say, it's great. Arsenal won nothing for 5 years. I've got to be honest, John. I wish they'd got to the Champions League final for me, because if the Champions League run for us goes to the next couple of games, you would have rather Arsenal had their eyes focused on the Champions League final. Now, the only thing they've got to play for is remaining in second place.
Yeah, I mean, that was my first reaction last night, Steve, was on the result, which was fully expected. I mean, they had to do something at home against Paris Saint-Germain, who are a wonderful, wonderful side. Nothing like the side we beat 4-1, which was full of prima donnas. This is a very working, hard, flair-driven side. But yes, if they'd been in the final, their mind would have been on other things. Their mind's not on anything. Now, you can just hope that they're so deflated, it having lost in the semi-final, and that there's nothing to play for in as much as they've got the Champions League position and they can't win the title, that they might just be off the boil. But yeah, in a way, they've got to make certain of second place. Though a lot of people might say, why? There's little difference between second and third in terms of the Champions League, but there is in terms of their progression, isn't it? They've been second for the last couple of seasons, and they would want to keep that going. But if their mind had been on a Champions League final, that would have been wonderful for us, because that's our next away game after we've played at home to Chelsea. These two games against the two London sides are absolutely huge, aren't they? Yeah. I mean, really, really are huge. Beginning with Chelsea, because we've always said you can only concentrate on who you're facing and on the next game. But the next game also, not only does it split Chelsea and us, who are both on the same points and on the same goal difference, not only does it split that, but it sets the mood for Arsenal, doesn't it? If we've won, we'll go down to Arsenal saying we are on the brink of the Champions League. We'll get a point at Arsenal, win it against Everton, and we're there, etc. If we go down to Arsenal having been beaten by Chelsea, the mood would be hugely different. So it's apart from the fact that it's an absolute crucial 3-pointer, it's a mood setter as well for the final two games, I feel.
This part of the season, some teams have their flip-flops on. Other teams have European ambitions, could be at a final. Man United, of course, and Spurs, both hoping to be in the Europa League final, for example. But, that sometimes leads to teams which you think, would put out a strong team, suddenly putting out a weakened team. And I've got to be honest, John, the most disappointing thing about last weekend was that Liverpool-Chelsea game. And the fact that Liverpool literally put out the reserve team against Chelsea, because that game is very important to the Champions League race, not just for us, but all the teams who are trying to get in. And Liverpool just, it was almost like going through the motions. I was really disappointed about that, John. And in the past, you didn't put your strongest team out. You used to get fined.
Yeah, that used to be the way it is, not any longer. I almost had suspected that they might do that, but not in the way they did, Steve. I mean, I remember Souness saying before we played the League Cup final at Wembley that maybe Mo Salah was getting all their goals, but their success was built on their midfield three, who dictated the pace of games for Liverpool, got them the result, etc., etc. The wonderful thing was our three absolutely demoralised their three at Wembley, but their midfield three were what Liverpool are all about. Now, he didn't rest one of them or drop one of them, he took the whole three out. It was a complete reserve midfield, which meant against a team like Chelsea, they were almost sacrificing the points immediately. Now there's people that will say, and they can say that, they had every right to pick whatever side they wanted these days because you're no longer risking a fine. They've done their job by winning the Premier League. But morally, really it reflects. It was bad not just for us, but it was bad for Nottingham Forest and for Man City and for Aston Villa and for the other clubs going forward. But let's put it another way, Steve. Did you actually expect Liverpool to do us a favour after the League Cup final at Wembley by putting out their strongest side to try to hold up Chelsea? I don't think they're too concerned about us at the moment, mate.
No, you're right, mate. You're right. I mean, I've exuded a bit of confidence on you since the cup final, and rightly so. We've won a trophy, and we've continued a great run. We've had a little blip against Aston Villa, of course, but other than that, Newcastle's record has been phenomenal, John. And when I was watching Sky Sports the other day, here's the last 19 games, John. Points 42, second ranked. Wins 14. First ranked, goals 46, second ranked, expected goals and XG. Well, we tend to ignore them on here, but we're second in both of those categories as well. Shot conversion, first 16.7%, and clean sheets 9 first. I mean, that really is the consistency that we were talking about at the start of the season, John, which Newcastle lacked, and Eddie Howe was craving for and always craves for. That's the reason, I think, why I've felt confident, John, because we're playing really, really well.
I mean, it's all about results at this time of the year, and isn't it funny because being Geordies were quite dramatic. When we lose, the whole world's caved in, and when we won, we're marching towards the sunshine. But I mean, we always had that famous phrase for Newcastle United, went with it, where the only thing that's consistent about this is our inconsistency. And those facts prove that we have not been inconsistent. I mean, the truth of the matter, why we sometimes have a sharp intake of breath as Geordies, is because when we don't win, and we almost all the time do win, those figures prove that, but when we don't win, we normally lose, i.e., that draw at Brighton, I don't know if you realise, was our first draw in 27 games dating back to the beginning of December when we got a 3-3 with Liverpool, Steve. We never had a draw for 27 games until we drew with Brighton, because we win 3/4 of them, and if we don't win, we lose. But I mean, the losing has been few and far between. It is a total record of consistency. It does give you a huge hope. 2 of our 3 games are at home. I do think we missed Joe Linton down there at Brighton, and Joe will be out for these crucial games. That is no help, but that's part and parcel of football. We've got to get over that and get on with it. But that's a selection headache for and the way he sets up the team tactically for the Chelsea game. But Eddie's been good on the big game, Steve. You look at the 2 semi-finals against Arsenal in the Cup, and you look at Wembley, and he was tactically spot on in all 3 of those games. And this, outside of the 2 games against Arsenal in the semi-final of the Cup and the final, obviously, this is almost as big a game after those 3 as we've had this season, because so much is riding on the result because of the opposition being in the position they're in as well.
You touched on Joe Linton. There's not been any official confirmation from the club as yet as to what the situation is with him. Been talked about the issue, etc. We know that he was in Brazil with his family last weekend when Newcastle were playing against Brighton. But should we take a little bit of positivity out of the fact that there hasn't been an official confirmation that he's seasoned out? Because sometimes, that means that there is hope. And do you think maybe that behind the scenes they are trying to get him fit for at least one more game, maybe the Chelsea game?
Yeah, I mean, they desperately want them to play. Goodness gracious. You see, I said on this program, Steve, and I stick by it now, we weren't going to miss Joe Linton against Ipswich because Ipswich, with respect, aren't a good enough team. We don't play on a turnover and a counter attack against Ipswich because they can't dominate us. So we don't miss them so much. When we miss them is when we have quality opposition. Brighton, limited quality. Chelsea quality, Arsenal quality. We miss them then because we haven't got a ball winner alongside Tonali and Bruno to physically break things up and get us on the front foot. So we've missed them because of the matches we played. We would desperately like him back. He would desperately like to come back because he doesn't like missing games. What concerns me first and foremost is that it's his right knee, and that has been consistently his problem for the last few weeks. Now, I know that there's an argument that once we get through these 3 games that's left, he's got the summer to be able to recover and rest it, because the only answer is rest. But do we rest him now or do we patch him up? The other problem we've got with him, Steve, is that because he's a big guy physically, and he's not a little skinny guy that can hit the ground running. When he normally comes back from injury, he takes a couple of games, doesn't he, to get up to full power, if you like. And he doesn't hit the ground running because he's been a big guy. I think there will be efforts to get him back. It will not just be all about the Chelsea game because they would like him down at Arsenal. And it may be that we'll have to get 3 points on the last day. But if we do, we're guaranteed Champions League. He would be vital then too. There will be efforts to get him back. It's whether, but Steve, I only want him back if he's 100%.
Yeah.
At 80% patched up, that knee will go again, and he won't have the influence on the game that 100% Joe Linton would have. There's no question about that. If he's patched up and he's below par, he will not give us what we would expect from him. He needs to be virtually 100%. But there's no question that we missed him at Brighton, and we will miss him hugely against Chelsea and Arsenal if he's not there. By Jove, we will. And that's the other problem, because not only are you haven't got Joe Linton, but the guy that you see, if you haven't got Anthony Gordon, Harvey Barnes turns up and is almost as good, or is as good, or is a little bit better. But we haven't got that for Joe Linton's position. Willick has not done the job Joe Linton does. Miley is placed behind Willick, and Longstaff's almost forgotten about. So we are suffering in that position when we haven't got Joe Linton, and that's the problem. But as much as I want Joe, I only want him if he's fit, mate. Because if he's not fit, it's not the Joe Linton we know in love, is it? It's a pale shadow of that. But by Jove, we could have do with him. He is a mess, and really, if it's not him, Joe Willock's got to step up to the plate, man. Because he's 25 now. He's at the crossroads. It hasn't happened for him. He hasn't looked the player he is. Yes, he's a great athlete. He's a great ball carrier. He gets the ball from the edge of their box, the edge of ours. But he plays with blinkers on. He doesn't get his head up and see the full picture. And often something doesn't come out of it because of that. We thought that we were so strong in midfield when we said we had 6 midfielders, the 3 superstars, plus Willick, Miley, and Longstaff. But yet it's proved once you get one of those 3 going out the midfield at the moment, there's definitely a drop in standard.
I mean, who would you pick is the next question, Gibbo, because ultimately, it's a huge game. There are 3 huge games on the horizon, depending on what the result is, of course, at the weekend. Who would you favour if you were picking that team?
Great question, because none of them really. But you've got to play somebody. None of them really, because they're nowhere near what Joe Linton is. Miley's going to be a very, very good player. Lewis is wonderful, but he's just had his 19th birthday. Could he dictate in a match like Chelsea and Arsenal, which is the next 2? I mean, from the off, he'll get on. There's absolutely no question about that. I think the manager which is the only person that counts, not me, you, punters, or whatever. The manager will go with Willick if he hasn't got Joe Linton. I'm pretty certain of that. But it's make or break for Willick because
it is.
He's not done what he should do. And I'm a lot of people say, well, okay, Willick sell him for 20 million this summer. He hasn't done it, etc. I'll ask you a question, Steve. Who's going to pay 20 million for Willick? Before you can unload him, you've got to have somebody willing to pay that sort of money for a guy. And on form, he would be bought on reputation rather than on form. And he would be bought by a mid-table to lower table Premier League club. He wouldn't be bought by a top half table of the Premier League.
Yeah.
But if he wants to rescue his career before it's too late, I mean, he's got to do it now.
Yeah.
Because your career quickly passes by, Steve, and you're left with all the regrets. I'm certain Maxie's, lying somewhere on a bed, getting sun on his body, thinking, blimey, I could have been at Wembley winning that cup and been on top of could you imagine him on top of he would have made a Sula look like an embarrassed little boy, wouldn't he? He would have been that exuberant. But you must sometimes sit and wonder and think that could have been me. If only I'd been a bit more dedicated, that could have been me. Willick should look at that and think, I don't want those regrets. So let me do something about it.
Yeah, I think that, Sean Longstaff from a couple of years ago would have been ideal in there. But unfortunately, I just think he doesn't have that kind of ability or engine anymore. And like you say, Eddie Howe is the man's opinion that counts because he's the man who sees them week in, week out. There's obviously something that he either doesn't trust about Miley at the minute, or maybe he just doesn't feel he's got that kind of ability to command the midfield in such a game. And I guess it's also about partnerships, John. I think Sid made this point on Talk of the Tune this week. It's about partnerships. Eddie's relied heavily on partnerships, whether it's been that, Trippier, Wilson, Miggy Almiron 3 that we had back in the day, whether it's the link up that we've seen in the past between Anthony Gordon and Lewis Hall, and now we're seeing with Harvey Barnes and Tino Livramento on the left-hand side. Yeah. But then, of course, your midfield 3, which is what we're talking about, Joe Linton, Bruno and Tonali. It's finding those partnerships, and maybe the partnerships just aren't as good when you play Miley in there with those other two. Maybe that's what it is, or Sean.
Yeah. I mean, Sean, bless him, is as far back as it's possible to be. I mean, and I think also what the trouble is now, if he was putting aside, I don't think he's got the confidence or the optimism to go in there and do it. He would feel like a sacrificial lamb, because he is getting the treatment now, isn't he, that Miggy Almiron got. You get nowhere near the starting level for Yonks. So when it comes to you having to leave, you resign to the fact that's going to happen. Whether he doesn't want to put Lewis in and expose him to a huge matches against very big opposition. I mean, it's different if you play Lewis against Ipswich or against Southampton or even a Wolves or whatever than you do if he goes in against Chelsea and he goes in against Arsenal. And I know he's played against Chelsea before and played well, but this is a different match with a different throw of the dice, because it's so huge. I mean, a lot of fans, I think, would go with Lewis Miley, and I think Lewis Miley is part of the future of Newcastle United, no question about it. But I just think in this match, Eddie will look to just get something else out of Willick, and then he's playing Arsenal, his old club. Will that inspire him? Will that do something? He's going back to the Emirates. But if he fails to make any sort of impact in those two matches, what's his future here?
Gary says, John, do you think there's any truth regarding Willick's injury being one that would reoccur? Do you think that worries him possibly? Is it a mental issue, do you think? And John Hackett says, you get the feeling Willick's got 3 more games to save his Newcastle career. He was brilliant a couple of seasons ago, but it seems the injuries may have taken their toll on him. Let's hope not. But do you think it could be in the mind?
It's a good point, John. Yeah, and yes, I think the mind plays a massive part in football. There's no question about that. No question whatsoever. And I mean, heaven forbid, but he has had injuries, and we've seen it firsthand what the injuries have done to Callum Wilson, who was in England centre forward and scoring a pile of goals, and now all of a sudden is looking weary. He's looking like he's on the last knockings of his career. So it can do that, but honestly, he's got to try to get optimistic. He's got to try to take positives. He's got to remember what he did do and try to do it again. His career has been stop-start with injuries. That's why he hasn't got in the side, etc., etc. But when he first come to us, if you remember, Steve, when he was scoring those 7 successive games or whatever it was with, I think it was the Steve Bruce era, wasn't it? He played with this wonderful smile on his face. He had the smile before Miggy Almiron had the smile, and his face used to light up, and you couldn't help smile looking at him because he was such a happy young man. I don't know where that smile's gone. We don't see it that often on the field now, do we? We see a grimace a lot more. And yes, I mean, your body gets a little bit worried by injuries, and therefore your mind gets that way. I'm hoping, for example, Steve, that doesn't become the situation with Sven Botman when he gets into playing regularly and gets back into starting in the side regularly. That he doesn't have in the back of his mind, I've had virtually all this season out effectively. And, I've got to be careful and I've got to watch that I don't get injured again, because this does happen to players. I mean, Supermac was finished at 29 with persistent knee injuries. And when he was finished at 29, I mean, he was really finished at about 27 and a half. He just tried to come back and come back and come back till he couldn't anymore. So injuries always take things out of players, and it could well be in Joe's mind because he's been far from injury free.
Yeah, it's interesting. You mentioned 2 players there. Let's talk about Callum Wilson first. Callum Wilson, holder of the number 9 shirt at the moment, one of the shirts which is held in such high esteem at our wonderful club. And yeah, you're right. He hasn't been the same Callum Wilson. He's just been beset with injuries. I did see shoots of the old Callum Wilson, though, at the weekend against Brighton. And had it not been for a wonderful save by Brighton's goalkeeper, he would have hit his 50th goal for Newcastle. So there might still be a part to play for Callum Wilson in these final 3 games, John.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, yes, because he's the only centre forward, because Asula is as much an outside right at the moment as he is a centre forward. And he could well have a good future here. But again, we're talking about the future and we're talking about the present. And with Callum Wilson, you're talking about the past. I did an article in the Chronicle recently saying, I would like to see, and this included the Brighton game, I'd like to see in the last 4 games, Callum Wilson come on and score a goal so that he gets his 50th for Newcastle, because he deserves to go out on that high for what he's done with us. And yes, he had that wonderful shot, and it reminded me of the old days. The keeper was lucky; it was straight above his head. Keeper does save shots above the head. He hadn't to go right or left. But I would love to have got the goal, and I hope he has some impact in the next 3 games, because I still believe that this being a harsh old world it's in, we've got to give Callum a great big kiss, thank him for everything he's done, and get the brass band out to play as he goes over the Tyne Bridge, because he really can't stay here as the cover for next season up front, because we've been on a wing and a prayer with Alexander Isak all season, haven't we? On having a long-term injury like Botman got and Lascelles got and other people have got. Where would we be in then? But massive trouble. We've got to go and sort the centre forward position out in the transfer market this summer.
Yeah. Tom, I think John's already answered your question. I think we all feel that probably Callum Wilson will depart Newcastle in the summer. But there again, we thought he would leave last year and he didn't. So who knows? Gary, I agree with you as well. Being a sentimental old so-and-so, I'd love Callum to get his 50th that guarantees us Champions League football. Yeah, Gary, football is full of stories like that over the years. So yeah, me too. I'd love him to go out in a blaze of glory. It would be very, very nice and very fitting. Sven Botman is back in the squad. A couple of cameo appearances, John. I guess as well, this is another thing which Eddie will have to make a decision on at this, at this late stage of the season. Fabian Schär is starting to show those war wounds again. He's not a man who bottles out the games, but sometimes your body will dictate what you do, and he's had to go off a couple of times, and I guess it's all it all depends on whether he's fit, but Botman may get thrust back into it. And again, because he's had two bad injuries, there's definitely going to be mental issues for him trying to get back in and hopefully, but he's a great player. Just we've got to keep him fit.
Yeah, he's a good player. There's no question there whatsoever. And I mean, you're right about Fabi. I mean, Fabi, he goes off 3/4 of the way through games now, and if he hasn't got a hamstring injury, he's got a twisted sock. I mean, anything seems to put him on the touchline for the run in, and then we're told after the game we don't know how bad it is. Has he just got cramp, or it might be a strain, and then he appears the next game, which thank goodness he does. But that's why we need a right-sided centre half this summer, Steve. Because, we can't rely on him being fit for 38 Premier League games, never mind the FA Cup, the League Cup and Europe, because we are in Europe next season. So we do need somebody. I mean, if he was out on Sunday, for example, you've got to either play Kraft on the right side because he is right-sided, or you've got to go and play your two left-footers together, which is Burn and Botman, which we have done not so long ago before Sven's latest injury, and it did work. It's whether if we started Botman, we know he couldn't last 90 minutes. Would you get an hour out of him and then bring Kraft on? I mean, we've got no worries about him on ability. It's just, is he up to speed physically, and is he strong mentally to say I can rely on these legs? I'm okay again. Or does he make little cameo appearances, and perhaps if the Champions League's all decided, he starts the last game just so he mentally goes into the summer having got rid of that barrier in his mind. I started a game before the end of the season and start against Everton. But he's a good player and we need him back. And we need him looking as if he's got faith in his legs again and to keep going, and he hasn't suffered a Callum Wilson or a Joe Willick, etc., etc.
Yeah, 100%. Kieran Trippier really is just on top form. I mean, I had him and Harvey Barnes probably down as my star players at Brighton last week, but I thought Trippier again was exceptional, and we have just such a different, a different team when he's in there, and he had that little blip, at the back end of last season, and didn't get off to a great start this season, but neither did the team. But when Kieran Trippier's playing well, Newcastle play well, and I'll go back to that graphic I showed you earlier on. 9 clean sheets, John, and that's no mean feat in the Premier League.
Yeah, I mean, he's done terrific. The one game apart was Aston Villa 4-1 when I think Ollie Watkins crucified Trips because he runs from right to left, and he exposed them both for a lack of pace. But what Trippier is, we considered, and rightly so, we had two of the best young fullbacks in the league when we had Livramento and Hall. And by the way, let's not forget, Steve, Hall's contribution this season. Just because he's out on this run-in, he was in contention to be our player of the year when he got injured, He is, and he had gone from a terrible season when he was on loan and he couldn't get in the side, becoming a full England international. So when we had Livramento at right back and we had a Hall at left back, we thought we've got perhaps the England partnership at fullbacks of the future, never mind the Newcastle United partnership. All of a sudden, Hall gets done out the blue, Livramento goes across and Trippier comes in, and it's as if nothing's changed. And that's as big a compliment as you can give Trippier and Livramento playing on his wrong side. Livramento has played on his wrong side and looked as if he's been there all his life. And Trips looks as if he's 24, not 34, the way he's playing at the moment. They've both done wonderful, and as we say, we've let in 9, and we let in 4 against Aston Villa. But that apart, and the 2 fullbacks have looked terrific when we didn't expect it. There was a feeling that Trips was finished, and we were thrilled for what he'd done for us, but we were going to let him have a last hurrah by letting him be transferred to another club, and that he had accepted that and was quite willing to do that to get a last hurrah somewhere else. And then all of a sudden it's changed, and Trips has been terrific, and so has Livramento. Because if Livramento hadn't worked out there, it might have been a different kettle of fish, and we would have had to play Livramento right back then to play Trippier left back. Because again, there's another one, Target. I mean, I've seen Lord Lucan as often this season as I've seen Target.
Yeah. It's we've got players who've unfortunately just been beset with injury, and there's hopefully going to be a bit of clearing the decks this summer. It is needed, and bringing some much needed new blood in as well. This really tickled me. I did show it the other day as well on Talk of the Tune, but this was a post on social media on Instagram by William Asula. There's Joe Willick and Alexander Isak having a bite to eat, and Anthony Alanga, John, put, "Where's my invite, bro?" And William Asula replied, "Anytime, my bro, join us." Social media, John, I know you're not on it, but when these kind of things happen and these kind of things put up, it starts all the kind of rumour mill flying around. But Alanga was, of course, linked with Newcastle. He wouldn't be a bad turn, would he, if he came in?
Oh, I supported him very much when he was originally linked with Newcastle, because when Nottingham Forest were firing on all cylinders right up to Christmas, etc., it was all about Chris Wood was scoring all the goals, but it was all about the 2 wingers, wasn't it? Hudson-Odoi and Elanga were so quick on the transition and fed the big man so well that the goals came. And Elanga, and both those wingers at Forest, and that they're not having the impact now as much as they had in the first half of the season. But both of them have been brought up the right way, haven't they? Hudson-Odoi was brought up at Chelsea and was good enough to play for England, and Elanga at Manchester United. They had good pedigree. And of course, I mean, Asula, bless him, I wonder when he tells, "Come on, bro, come and join us," whether he realises he's blocking one of his passes in the team, because he can play outside right, can't he? He's done that with us. But perhaps he wants Elanga sticking the ball in so he can score more headers, like he did the other day, which was a whiz of a header, without a shadow of doubt. But yeah, you can get friends doing all that and having a bit of fun. But by Jove, on social media, isn't it then taken as serious? And all sorts of things start. And especially as Elanga, of course, has been linked with us in the past. And we are in the market for a player in his position.
Yeah, 100%. I just want to thank Sandra for sending this in. Since the cup win, it's been fantastic. Lots of accolades, lots of recognition for the lads, and rightly so. This has got to be my favourite. This is hanging up in the old Asda, where Dan Byrne used to work. It's a wonderful tribute to him. There he is as well, with his shopping bags. And it says, "In celebration of Newcastle hero Dan Byrne, man of the match and first goal scorer in the 2025 Carabao Cup final versus Liverpool, the first domestic trophy for the Tune in 70 years. Dan works part-time as a trolley porter at Asda Blythe at the age of 16, and in recognition of his achievements, his number 33 vest has now been retired."
As long as the big man hasn't been retired, because we need him. But I mean, that's wonderful, isn't it? And I wrote about it at the time, and I said it at the time on this podcast. I mean, Hollywood ought to do a story on this. Never mind Rocky, that was fictional. Never mind Wrexham, they're 2 divisions down. What about the trolley pusher that played for fun for Blythe Town and Blythe Spartans, and he's scoring the crucial opening goal of Wembley. He's man of the match at Wembley, and he's back at Wembley a week later for his first England cap. I mean, by Jove, is he a story or a story, the big man? And by the way, if he wants to produce one of them Wembley headers against Chelsea on Sunday, I won't mind one bit.
Yeah, me neither. Tom Dixon says, looks like Lloyd Kelly will be going in the summer. I mean, this has been a strange transfer, this. I mean, whatever happened to just, somebody comes in, likes a player, pays you the money, and they go. What on earth this transfer is all about? I've lost interest in it. But for me, he's not at the club anymore.
Well, the situation, it's turned out, and it's taken a long time. You see, what happens as well, Steve, is in the old days, when transfer deals were done, the clubs involved stood up and told you what the transfer deal was. They do not tell you now what the transfer deal was, which is what starts all the speculation, both in the press, on social media, etc. We were told, we had it here, Steve, with Lewis Hall. Lewis Hall joined us, and we were told at the end of that season, we were going to have to sign him. It was compulsory if certain terms were met, certain conditions. We didn't know what the conditions were. We spent all the time. Is it X number of games played? Is it this? Is it that? Newcastle United never clarified it. Chelsea never clarified it. And with Juventus, neither Newcastle United or Juventus haven't clarified it. That is the way football is now. In the old days, they used to tell it the way it was. Now, everybody surmised in the media that the Lloyd Kelly deal was linked to, if Juventus made Europe, any one of the three European competitions, they were forced to buy him. It now turns out, if we believe what we hear, and this is the Italian press, have discovered it was never about whether Juventus made Europe or not. It was the number of games Kelly played for Juventus this season, and the total was hugely low, so it was almost automatic unless he'd got a season-long injury at the beginning. And he has played those number of games, so he is going. But it was presumed that it was on Juventus making Europe. It turns out not to be the case. It was on the number of games Kelly played for Juve, and he's past that number, so he has to go.
Great stuff, John. Thanks for clearing that up. Chelsea at home this Sunday sees Newcastle play their penultimate Premier League home game of the season. It is a 12 noon kickoff, and it is live on TNT Sports. Of course, Newcastle are without Lewis Hall, Jamal Lascelles, Joe Linton, as we know so far, and Matt Targett. Coach Jason Tindall will be back on the touchline. He served his one-match ban after picking up 3 yellow cards. Chelsea, well, of course, they play tonight, so we can't really give you an update on their squad. They are going into tonight's game fully fit, though. They've got a full squad to pick from, and it's a big squad, as we know. They've got a 4-1 first leg lead in the Europa Conference League semi-final tonight. Their last Premier League games, it was a 2-1 success at Fulham in their most recent Premier League away game. And of course, they managed to beat Liverpool reserves last week. We've already talked about that. That still annoys me. Referee for the game is John Brooks at his 4th game of the season. Let's hope this is a lucky omen. He's second in the Premier League after the 1-0 victory over Arsenal. But he also took charge of the 2-0 Carabao Cup win at Arsenal in the semi-final, and he also refereed the final at Wembley. Another good result for us. VAR is Darren England. I've already given my prediction early this week on the show yesterday because I am feeling fairly confident, and I do feel that Newcastle will win this game. I think Newcastle are going to win by 3-1. I am confident of a win. I think Newcastle will be well up for it. I think the fans will be up for it. And I think we'll cheer them to victory, mate. What about you?
Yeah, good point. Well said. You can't get a sheet of paper between the two clubs at the moment. We're both on 63 points. We both have a goal difference of 21. So it is as tight as that. And Chelsea ran into a little bit of form. Cole Palmer's come into form in the last game when he was absolutely outstanding. So this is a test for me of character as much as credentials. I have been right on the last 2 predictions, Steve, not only on the result, excuse me, but on the scoreline, I said 3-0 against Ipswich and 1-1 at Brighton. So I'm after a hat trick of being right on the scoreline. And as long as my overall thing's right, I don't care about the scoreline. But I am like you, taking it to be a Newcastle victory. I think it might be a little tighter than the 3-1 scoreline suggests. I think we might have few fingernails left by the final whistle, and it'd be so close it's untrue. But I believe we'll win, and I'm going for 2-1.
Great stuff. Thanks as always for your time. Thanks to everybody in the chat. I'm back 6 o'clock tomorrow with the three amigos. It is a pre-recorded show, and then back live 9:30 on Saturday morning with George on Ask George. Take care, John. See you next week at 11 o'clock.
Absolutely. Keep the faith, guys.
Big thanks to all our sponsors. Skips and Bins. Say hello to low-cost waste disposal with pay-as-you-go and contract waste management. Their website, skipsandbins.com. Contact them, www.skipsandbins.com/contact. Big thanks to Mr. Vicky's Sauces, handmade in Cumbria. Their website, mrvickies.co.uk. Email info@mrvickies.co.uk. Telephone 01768 210 102. Thanks to our fanzine sponsor, United Group Travel, UK Coach Holidays. There are no strangers on our tours, just friends you haven't met yet. 2 crew, driver and courier, local family company, 3-star plus quality hotels, no interchanges. Hot and cold snacks and drinks available on the coach, all excursions included. Their website, www.unitedgrouptravel.com. Email beverly.ugtl@gmail.com. Telephone 01670 632 460 or mobile 0791 666 4174. A big thanks to Media Arts for all the technical side of things. And if you want to listen to us as a podcast, you can find us on Sport Social Podcast Network. We're also available on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to support the channel, then hit the subscribe button. We still do 7 shows a week. Hit the like button, which is the thumb underneath this video, and click share to your social media. You could also take out a monthly membership or an annual membership at nufcmatterspodcast.co.uk. For the lifetime membership, you can pay £25 and get a pen, a beer mat, a fridge magnet, a badge and a keyring and your membership card and entry into the monthly draw. Some events coming up: 27th of June 2025, the end of season party. Beresford, Howie and Watson will be at the Tyneside Irish Centre with Joe Allen in aid of North Tyneside Age UK. You can get your tickets for that one from nufcmatters.co.uk or from Voucher. No Covers takes place at the Clooney. That's on the 29th of June, midday till 3:45, and tickets are £10 from theclooney.com or newcastlelegends.com. Northern Horizon, a Blake 7 convention, takes place on the 9th of August, 10 till 4 at the Tyneside Irish Centre. Come and meet some of the cast and crew in aid of Age UK North Tyneside Dementia. Tickets from nufcmatters.co.uk. An evening with Peter Beardsley and Chris Waddle takes place on Friday the 23rd of January 2026 at the Tyne Theatre and Opera House. You can get tickets from the box office 0844 249 1000 or from tynetheatreandoperahouse.uk. And Bad Manners are back in the Northeast at the O2 City Hall, Friday the 30th of January 2026. Tickets from ticketmaster.co.uk. And we have copies of The Entertainer's book, signed by Les Ferdinand, available from nufcmatters.co.uk.